In this video, we consider the use of external files for data storage with our C++ programs. What this means is instead of reading from the keyboard and writing to a monitor, we'll read from a file and write back out to another file. This allows us to have data retained in between the runs of a program. For example, if we were writing a program to calculate the transactions from a bank from an entire day, we'd read all that information from a file, and then we'd take the results and probably print them back to another file so somebody else could use them later. So in order to do that in our C++ program, these are the steps. First, we need to open a file, then we use the file, we read from it or write to it or both, and then we close the file. So let's learn how to do this. First, you'll need to include fstream. The fstream header file contains all of the functionality to read and write from files. The file stream types, think of these as data types, just like an int or a float, except in this case they'll be file pointers, meaning the if stream is for input file, so it will declare a variable that can look at an input file. The OF stream is for an output file. So again, you'll declare a variable just like if you're declaring an int or a float or a char or anything else, except now this will be pointing at a file. Here's how we declare them. So we use the keyword ifstream infile. Infile is the name of the variable. I could have named that x. I could have said ifstream x. So ifstream infile is declaring a variable. What type of variable is that? That's a file pointer. It can point at a input file. The next thing we do after we've declared the variable is we need to give it a value. So the value that we're giving it is a file name. This is different than setting x equal to 12 or something like that. Here we're setting infile equal to inventory.dat. The file name may include the drive and path info. So we might have to do something like c:'file inventory.dat. So we'd have to give it a complete path. The output file will be created if necessary. An existing file will be erased first. So here where we see outfile.open report.txt. If you have that in a working program and report.txt does not already exist, this line will create the file. However, if report.txt does exist at this location, then it will be erased before it starts outputting information to it. So any information that was there will be deleted. The input file must exist for open to work. If inventory.dat does not already exist, this will return an error. It'll actually point to nothing. It'll return a 0. So this is how we test for that case. Infile.open test.txt, that's the file name. Now, if that file does not exist, infile will have the value 0 after that line executes. Then if not infile, so if test.txt does not exist, then infile will be 0, not 0 is true, and it would print out the cout line file open failure. All right, so that you always want to use this when you open an end file. That way you'll know if the file actually opened or not. Once you've created a file pointer and you've attached it to a file, now you can read from and write to it. We're going to use outfile. That's the variable name now. It has no special meaning other than it's a variable name. We'll use the variable name that points to the file for an out file, just like cout. Except now instead of printing it to the screen, it's going to print it to the file. And the same thing with the input files. Infile, greater than, part num. So that's going to be reading just like if you use cin, you'd be reading from the keyboard, but now it'll be reading from the file. Now one thing you have to watch out for here is you have to have the right information in the file. If part num is an integer, there better be an integer at that location in the file. So you have to know what's in the file to properly read stuff from it. Now the extraction operator that's reading from a file will return a true when the value was successfully read. If you have a value in the file and it's of the correct type of the variable you're reading in, then it will return true. If it's the wrong type, it can return a false. Or if there's no more data in the file, it can also return a false. So this works really well when we have a loop. So the while loop will continue as long as there's information in the file. And again, you have to be reading in the correct information. So if number is an int type, you better have a file full of ints in this case. While input file number, each time it reads something in, that will return a true, and we'll go into the loop and we can process the data. Then it'll loop back around, it'll try to read the next item from the file, If it's successful, it'll process that data. And when it hits the end of the file, input file greater than num will be false because it won't be able to read anything in. It'll stop the loop. This is what we want to have happen. We read in all the information from the file, and then we stop when there's no more information left in the file, and we can process each bit of information as we go through. Then after you're done using the file, you always want to close the file. So use infile.close. Again, infile, outfile are just variable names. They could be X and Y. It's just a variable name. Infile is type IF stream, outfile is type OF stream. The IF stream and the OF stream make it input and output respectively.